the show.
Put your hand up on my tweet. When I tweet, you tweet, we tweet. Retweet?
Yeah. We tweet, retweet.
Oh, man. I need to.
Did I just say retweet or retweet?
I cannot hear a
It's not
difference.
Retweet is not a thing. No, it is a thing on Twitter. Retreat is
To run
running
away.
Yes.
Or to give a treat again, like to a very good dog.
Says the guy that worked for a dog treat.
It did. Retreat.
Yeah. Yes.
What?
Cool. Well, we're live. I don't know if anyone's going to be going on because I literally only just mentioned this now and whatever.
I think Twitter's really bad about like
They are
timely. Yeah. Timely updates. And it's because they want to push their own. What is that magic circle thing?
Algorithm?
No. They have some sort of product, right?
Communities, racism, anarchy.
All of those are true and exist on Twitter. Yes. No. I was talking about they have like a live
circles. Is it circles?
We're good.
Now it sounds like something.
Spaces.
Now something. Spaces.
Yeah.
I don't like that feature because I'm much more a fan of tabs.
Wow. I think the audience listening to this podcast can hear my eyes roll into the back of my head on that one. That was really intense.
Well, the good thing is that was recording. Unfortunately, that's not going to be on the show because we haven't done our intro yet. So let's get into the intro.
Ooh.
Hey, Grant, what is going on? It's been a while. This is another episode of the Function Call, a fun show all about web development. How are you doing?
I'm good. You didn't notice.
You got a haircut. Actually, it looks like you got most of your hairs cut. Most of the ones on the top of your head.
No.
You have a television in the background.
Not quite. No.
You've moved offices. I noticed that you're wearing a different shirt than you were wearing on the last episode that we recorded.
Oh, it's been way too long. No, it's Durant now. It's a soft G.
Oh, it's Durant. Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. How was the procedure, by the way? I'm glad to hear that you're doing well.
Surprisingly simple. The tenderizer is gentler than you might think.
Well, as you would assume, given its name.
Ooh. How you doing, Austin? It's good to be back.
Nice transition. This is a show where we said we have fun and eventually talk about web development. I'm doing well. Yeah, we have some updates. I think your updates are probably going to be more interesting, considering the little bit that I know. But I'm good. Been doing a lot of. Man, we had a long rainy season this year. And if we want to get into exciting stuff, let me start telling you about the weather.
Ooh. Yeah. Does it involve degrees centigrade and
I don't think
millimeters of precipitation?
Probably not that spicy. No, but it was just we had a long rainy season, and this was like our first sunny weekend, and it was so nice. And we have our nice little patio now, and we strung up some lights over the last couple of months, and so it's been real good. Long overdue.
That's lovely. I'm glad the weather is treating you well, because I mean you come from well, at least for a period of time, San Diego.
I did live in San Diego.
You're aware of what excellent weather really is. So
yes. And the thing is, you don't appreciate it when it's there all the time. And now let's just say I have a very good appreciation for nice weather. I've developed a taste for it. Anyway, so we wanted to. We're just doing like a catch-up show, right? Because it's been a while. There's been a lot of changes in your life.
Oh yeah. Oh, it is
changes in my life.
Constant change. I mean, you're like in the public eye all the time now.
I don't know about that.
I mean, you're streaming. It's part of your like deal now. You're
It's my gig now. Yeah. Yeah, it's
great.
been good. It's been a lot of fun. So let's see, last year I joined Akamai as a developer advocate, which was my first little move into that sort of role, coming from originally background in agency work and then a background in product work. Uh, and yeah, I was doing a lot of blogging and a lot of open source stuff before this role, and now I'm just, man, it's wild. It's wild how much it's the same or more stress, but way less responsibility. Because I'm not going to take down production. I'm not going to like lose, data or leak private information or anything like that, which is nice. But then, oh man, the amount of projects that's just like context switching, and then oh my gosh, I have to go on a live stream, and then oh my gosh, I gotta like, I don't know, start planning this content stuff, and it's been a journey, but it's settling in pretty nice now.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, I think it suits you really well. It's clearly something that you've been interested in for a long time, and it's kind of just what you do anyway.
Yeah,
So
you know the interesting effect that it's had though is it has affected my open source work. So
okay.
it's cool because it's fun because on my normal live streams that I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're like building projects, and most of those projects have some sort of tangentially related thing to I don't know, something work related maybe, or like eventually like I'll be building out a course that eventually I'm going to be doing like training on uh, managed databases, right? And so I'm going to build
Mhm.
out a project, and then eventually that'll become a course or something. Um, so that's fun, but then there's projects that are not related to work that I still feel some responsibility for, like utensils,
Mhm.
and I'm still getting issues on that, uh, and um, those issues, because so much of my work now, so much of my time is spent on these things that are like still uh, open source or blogging or the things that I was doing in my free time. Now I don't have the urge to do that in my free time, but there's still a disconnect between the actual like I would like to see utensils continue to grow, but it's not something I'm going to do in my work days. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I mean, sort of. It sounds to me like your your job, and since you're able to kind of tangentially work on this stuff in your job, sometimes that scratches the itch enough where in your off time you're off. Am I reading
Yeah.
that correctly? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
super stoked about that. I think that is
Yeah.
awesome for you.
Yeah. Like it's funny because yeah, I definitely went through burnout at one point, and this has been a nice change in that direction. Um, and I do recognize that's like, oh, this is work life. Like the meme with the guy with the butterflies. Like, is this work life balance? It's like probably still not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is nice. That's like, okay, I'm actually going and like spending time in the garden and like digging up weeds and stuff like that.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so it's been good, but I also, yeah, I do want to get to a point where I have some time in my free time spent on maintaining some of these projects that I do care about.
Yeah. I can understand that. But you know what? They're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
They're gonna be okay.
How about you?
Oh, geez. I mean, so the last couple of months have been like really, really wild at work. We have been preparing for this like staged release of our new platform that I've been building for the last 8 months or so. People have said like we've spent a year building this thing. No, we've been building it for like 8 months. And it's an entire platform for DocuSign.com and all of the content that will be moving over from our prior stack. So we'll dig into that a bit. and like what that looks like and exactly what that took. But we've been in the process of like optimizing experiments and ramping that up in different areas and experimentation, some iteration here and there to kind of please the experiment gods. And then we are now at 100% on DocuSign.com. And that is all stood up on our new platform, new stack, new everything.
Yeah, I don't want to wait to get into it. I want to know now. Let's go.
I want to know right now.
Let's go.
What is that? Let's go.
Let's go. No one knows what that is. Yeah, so I want to know. Let's see. I want to know about the before and after technology. Maybe some of the decisions into why the migration was necessary and why the technology that y'all chose. I want to know about like where are the rough edges, because I think that especially around technology choices, a lot of people paint like pretty pictures, but then it's only like if you can't talk about rough edges, then you probably like every technology has that, right?
Yeah.
And then also, yeah, so you mentioned that you were using Optimizely before.
Yeah. So Optimizely, so
that's like A/B testing, right?
Yeah. So Optimizely's A/B testing platform, they like that is outside. So I'm lucky enough at DocuSign where our testing platform, our analytics platform, like we have entire teams that deal with that stuff and handle that. Like it is outside of development to deal with that stuff, which is really neat. It's also a little bit infuriating, like if they get something wrong, because like they are injecting stuff on our page, like they are manipulating traffic. Like it can be a little infuriating. But it's also like I have been in roles where you have to build these things into the product and all that kind of stuff for A/B tests. And so I much prefer to have like a very hands-off approach. And that actually went into some of how we decided to build our stack. I'll dig into what that is then. Not shockingly for anybody who listens to the show and knows me, it's a React stack. The only rule going into this, and I put a ton of thought and had a lot of conversations with people that I trust around this stuff, because I was essentially tasked initially with architecting the new headless front end for the DocuSign platform. And when I heard this, I was like, well, give me some idea of what this is going to be. And it's everything that appears on DocuSign.com going forward will be part of this. This excludes some subdomains that are product based, that are e-commerce based, but there may also be some connection in there as well. So it's a pretty broad thing that we have to kind of allow for. And so the only rule is React. And as long as we're building it in React, the interoperability is pretty good. So that was the rule. So we started essentially building a design system, which is well on its way, but still needs lots and lots of work. And luckily we have a great team working on this. Lots of people with way more experience building design systems than I have. Just like digging into this thing and really making it useful and putting a lot of thought into it. So that's React and Emotion. Emotion is a CSS and JS library. Our kind of page building mechanism, which connects to our headless CMS, which we're going to talk about rough edges, so I'm not going to name them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is each page is built statically generated using Next.js. This is another sort of rough edge. It's really, really useful in a lot of ways and provides a lot of cool stuff. But when you want to do just static file generation, a lot of the benefits of Next fall apart. Like it's not super useful as just a static site generator.
So it's only the ahead of time site generation and then deploy to a static host, or?
Yep. So it is. So we push up a change to Netlify, or somebody makes a content change and that hits a webhook and rebuilds, and Netlify makes it all super simple, pushes it out. It's ready to go. We don't have automated publishing on just yet. There's a lot of process that needs to go into that because our old stack, let me cover what the old stack was for a moment. The
Logical
old stack,
thinking.
right. Let's start at the beginning. React. Old stack was Drupal, Drupal on Drupal. And so there is a lot of Drupal going on. There's some stuff on Pantheon. I think there's some stuff on Acquia. There's like we've got some CDNs involved in this. There's a lot happening to kind of stitch together all of this Drupal happening, which is nice because it makes it very easy for us to stitch in the new stack and slowly transition that. And so that's been very, very helpful and very useful. So essentially, we're replacing a headed monolith with a completely headless SaaS based stack. So our CMS is a SaaS headless CMS. Our CI/CD pipeline, SaaS products. We're no longer on our enterprise GitHub, which was like such a massive win for our team. And I happen to know some folks that work internally on the product, and they're like, I'm eyeballing me some of that cloud GitHub goodness. Because I don't know if you've worked on like internal enterprise GitHub instances, but there are a lot of times.
GitHub.
No, they're like heavily restricted. You can only use Jenkins of this version. Up until recently, they didn't even have actions. Like GitHub Actions have been around for a while now. They got them very, very late. So like pretty restricted, pretty bare bones GitHub stuff. So like we're on GitHub Cloud. We're just like the belle of the ball as far as engineering goes. We're free from a lot of the internal churn, and a lot of that has to do with what we're working on. Since it is not the product, it does not have the same like terrifying, very necessary security requirements, right?
Right.
Like there's a good reason for all of that stuff to exist. Just not so much for like marketing web pages. So there were quite a few discussions in there.
Well, okay. So I
Where
think
was I
there's
going
an
from
interesting.
here?
You were going into the tech stack and like the transition stuff. I think that there's a quick point that I want to. There may be some value for listeners on how do you convince stakeholders to change things up, right? Like going from GitHub Enterprise to GitHub Cloud Hosted. That seems like a significant change. And I'd be curious to hear if you were in the room or maybe if you were the one making the arguments, like how did you convince your boss and the organization to greenlight that?
So there were conversations about this that predate my existence at DocuSign, right? And so there was a project that was worked on to use Drupal headlessly and start to move in this direction. And so these are all different facets of that desire to modernize from the engineering perspective. But the argument that had to be made was around like what business benefit exists from this. And so I leaned heavily into the recruiting aspect of we want to have very good engineers. And what's great is like this absolutely worked. Like we've got great engineers. We've hired and built like a really good team. I'm super proud of that. But that's really the direction that I leaned with it. What the points that also needed to be made was increased velocity, massive increased reliability and security, and like a Drupal instance floating out there is potential for someone to get in there. A static site that is generated and exists on a CDN, very low security risk. So
was this speculation, or did you have internal like access to data that was like, yeah, the site actually has been going down and maybe this much it costing this much, or we know that the site loads at 3 seconds or 4 seconds to load, and if we can cut that down.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the performance story yet, but that's definitely part of it. So I actually don't know how much I can discuss like uptime
Fair enough.
stuff. But
Yeah,
there's a huge benefit. I know there was a period of time a few weeks back where AWS was down frequently, or a few months back, I guess now. You remember, just kept going down. There was another incident with a CDN that went down, which I think sometime last year, that impacted us, and that sparked a huge amount of interest in multi CDN architecture, which Netlify happens to have. So that made the conversation of going to an external CI/CD pipeline much easier. It made that on top of like Netlify's ability to really sell their product. Like they did an excellent job against all of the other SaaS products that we were comparing. Like they were head and shoulders above. Is that the saying? Heads and shoulders above?
That's a shampoo brand.
They were great.
Yes. I think something like that. Sure.
Okay. So like being in on these like SaaS product evaluations for enterprise stuff was like, this is the first time I had been a part of that type of process at this level. And it was really interesting because it's not what I thought it would be. Except with Netlify, it was exactly what I thought it would be with them, which is like I had access to their to a couple of engineers to talk to. We kind of work together on like what are our requirements, this and that, regular check-ins, this sort of stuff. The other folks were like, oh, here's an account, like check it out, let me know what you think. Which I get the hands-off approach, but it just didn't really work for us. I like to be wooed, as it were.
Courted.
I prefer a courting process. So once we had a decision on like our CI/CD pipeline and like our host and CDN products, that sort of mandated the conversation around getting us out of enterprise Get, which was a request that I've been making all along. It's something that was very painful for my team when I worked on the ecom team, and it's something I know a lot of engineers internally. It's restrictive in a lot of ways, and they don't like it, and I didn't like it, and this allowed us to get out. So there was sort of a series of dominoes that fell in those conversations as we started to make decisions and move forward. It made it easier and easier to kind of keep pushing that boundary to where we're just like totally external. There are some huge downsides to that, which we'll get to. There's a lot of security support that other teams get that we just do not have access to. There's a lot of very easy ways to kind of publish and produce packages for other teams internally that we also are going to have to jump through huge hoops to be able to do ourselves. There's a lot of red tape that exists when you're working in public with our kind of company attached to the work that we do. Like we can't just do whatever we want now that we're out here. Whereas internally, there's very, very low risk because it's all in this very secure walled garden. Like if you publish a package and it leaks a key, like no harm done. Like it's not a problem. Whereas externally, we out here.
Okay, so you're working externally, but you're still like you're on GitHub Cloud now, right? And that's a private repo, or it's like public?
Yeah. No. It's a private repo.
So how do you leak a key then? I mean, yeah, like granted, you don't want.
Right. So our intention. So I mentioned we have a design system. Our intention is to publish this at some point.
So then the GitHub history or the Git history.
So you can publish an npm package without having the
Yes,
repo public. It
that's
can be
true.
private, and the source code. The only code that is public is what's bundled, which would be our path forward. But there are lots of requirements that we need to make sure that all of the I's are crossed and T's are dotted, right?
Yes.
So there's a whole lot there. So I think that covers most of our stack. So like React, Next.js, we're on Netlify CI/CD. Very early on, I decided this was going to be a mono repo, and I think I talked about that when I was making the decision on the show. There's some like big pros to this. Like this has really helped development velocity a massive amount. It's really, really cool.
But it sounds like you have just a single domain that you're responsible for.
Oh yeah. Right
So
now,
how's that a mono repo though? Because you have presumably Next.js is just building the thing, or you're building your internal UI component library next to Next.js, and they are technically separate projects.
oh
because
dude,
one is going to be.
this is deep. This is deep. We have a library of design tokens. We have a library of components. We have a library that is our core design system, and then we have a library of patterns that are components that are built in, that are consumed in another application in the mono repo, which is our Next.js page builder, which consumes utilities from a utility library that connects to our SaaS CMS that gives us some type safety most of the time. So like there is a lot going on in this mono repo, and having that structure to hang it on made it it's chef's kiss. It is a beautiful love it. There are some problems. It is at this point getting quite big. Our tests when they run in CI, and our builds when they run, like the interdependency. So NX is a mono repo kind of management structure piece of software. It's like Turbo Repo. It's like a lot of these other things that are trying to take the pain out of this, like Lerna historically, or like Yarn workspaces, right? So it gives you a structure to hang on to. NX comes from people who are from Angular land. And I figure Angular, they got a lot wrong, but one thing they didn't get wrong was structure. They got structure right. And so I figure, Angular people, I need some structure. Let's do this. It was the right call. There is some difficulty as far as like the builds and their relationships to one another start to get really heavy. There's probably a lot that I'm doing wrong in the way that I manage this thing, that just makes things a bit sluggish. But we are also doing a lot. So,
So with NX, can you do this thing where it sort of creates a cache layer on, because you have a mono repo. It's several projects within one giant project essentially.
Right.
And if I make a change to one bit of text on the static site, I don't want to have to rerun the build process for, let's say, the design token project and the or like the UI components project and like all of these other repos that don't depend on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will it sort of cache those changes and only run the builds and only run the tests and the CI for the website builder?
Yeah,
or?
Exactly. So there's a command built into NX called NX affected.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to run commands only on affected or updated / changed projects, right?
Okay.
So one of our pre-commit hooks is to run type checks on affected projects, which super valuable. Anybody who's worked in very large TypeScript projects knows that type checking starts to get real slow.
Oh.
Yeah, it does not go burr. What is the opposite of burr?
I don't know, sweating? Because burr is also the sound you make when you're cold,
Oh God.
Yeah, I took it multi-dimensional layers there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
there's some kinks to work out there, but all in, like the mono repo experience in this instance works really, really well. We could have gotten by having all of these in separate repos and then using like GitHub packages internally to like have like lockdown packages that can only be accessed by other people who are in our like GitHub org. Like we could have done that. But that seems like a lot of added complexity, and then like publishing and versioning is not something that we're really ready to tackle yet. None of this is ready to be published. Like the libraries are built to a very specific end, right? Like we have pushed out lots of new content on DocuSign.com using it, but it's like the design system in general is not quite 1.0. It's very much beta.
yeah. And it's interesting because the whole mono repo approach was like I was at the beginning of this conversation, I was under the impression that you rebuilt the DocuSign website with Next, and that was kind of the project. But it sounds more and more like you have almost like a cascade of projects where you have a design tokens project, and then you have your components project, and then you have your Next.js like website project, all part of this mono repo, and all kind of depending on each other in that sort of order, right? Like if I were to make a change to the design tokens, the web or the React component library is dependent on those design tokens, and then the Next.js website project is dependent on those React components, but all of those can also be published independently of each other, so that other organizations in your company can pull in just the parts that they need, like the design tokens or the React components. I don't see why anyone would need to pull in the DocuSign website for their project, but they could if they wanted to.
We do have another team that has forked our page builder. They're doing a migration of another section of the site. And so they are going to use that page builder and use it to their own end. And so, yeah, this was built as and I'm like doing big sarcastic air quotes. This was built as a platform. But what it is supposed to essentially unlock is a very similar experience to, building something in Drupal, right? Where
Wait,
right?
So you got rid of Drupal
to rebuild Drupal.
You can rebuild Drupal.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Welcome to JavaScript 2022.
Yeah. And so like I think there's a lot of things that Drupal gets right in this and that Drupal does really well. And there's there's nothing wrong with building stuff with Drupal. When you start hitting the limitations of that type of architecture, people start to reach for this because of the flexibility, because of the really like the performance gains that you get. Like DocuSign.com 6 months ago was not a performant website, and it currently is. It can be better. Please do not tweet me with our perf stuff. I'm very much on top of that and know what needs to happen. Some of this, as many of the engineers out there know, is outside of my control. So like some of it can be fixed, and what can be fixed will be. Other parts just won't be fixed, and it's part of living in capitalism. It's what we do. But I think one of the best improvements that we've really made here is accessibility. And accessibility in the form of, from our design system out, accessibility has been a focus. And we've like I'm as anybody who's listening to the show knows, like I don't understand accessibility very well. That's not my particular area of expertise. But we have hired some folks that are very, very good at this. And I've noticed that really what they're good at is just asking questions and making an argument early on in the development process to get time to get it right. And I think that is, if you're in an organization that does like any sort of project planning, like through the design phase, ask those questions, try to get yourself time to do it right the first time, because everyone who has any experience in this stuff knows that if it's out in production, going back and fixing that as tech debt is 10 times harder than doing it right the first time. So like this is something that like we have made a very big priority. Like their priority was accessibility and my priority was like type safety. So like everyone won as far as I'm concerned.
So how's the postmortem look, right? Like all the changes went live how long ago?
It was live. I think we were at 100% on Thursday of last week or Wednesday or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do the numbers look like? Like you said, you had the Optimizely data before, and now presumably you have different data.
Well, now it's 100% React, which is great. That's the number I care about. To be honest, like I don't know any of the other data points. I'm not really
How
too
do you
concerned.
justify the work then?
Do I need to?
No, I guess not.
No. Like I did really good work. Our team built something amazing in what is honestly a very short period of time, and we've only just started to see the benefits from it, right? Like
Yeah.
the workflows that are unlocked and the type of team structures within content and within like other ops teams that exist without all of the slowness that comes from internal infrastructure and releases.
Right.
You're welcome, everyone. Like it's so huge. And like I check things from time to time on have you ever heard of this website called Blind, or an app called Blind?
No.
Okay. This is
that I've seen it.
Oh God, I think I peaked my mic out with that, but it deserved it. It's horrific. So Blind is a site for people with like high-paying engineering jobs that work at big companies to go and complain about their big company that they work at. Like that's really what it is at its core. It's like a nasty place, but it does tell me that like we have made some very correct moves in this, in like the happiness of our engineers. And
like you can see your company on Blind.
I'm Blind, yes.
And you can see what presumably other members of your engineering team are saying about the company you work at.
Yeah, so Blind allows me to see. You're correct.
Okay. It
feels
like you thought I was taking it there. I wasn't taking it there.
I assumed. I'm sorry.
No. But yeah, so you're just like using it as a measuring stick to see what progress you had. And did you check it before and after, or just like everyone looks stoked now?
Just like the specifics of what some engineers will post up there are very pointed at exactly the things that our team does not have to deal with.
Okay, so probably engineers on different parts of the product.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very segmented. As we're we work within the marketing org, right? Similar to like you work in the marketing org, right? Yeah. So like it's pretty typical for marketing to have engineering, and we are that engineering group.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm very happy for you. I think that it's exciting. I know that it was a long. I mean, you said what, 8 months?
Yeah, it was a long time. But it was a really cool process. It was really interesting.
It's
There
so
was a lot
cool
there.
because you know what? It can be so disheartening to be working on something for so long that then just gets the chopping block and
Yeah.
doesn't get pushed to prod. So right on. Um, so you feel good. What's next then?
I don't know. I mean, like, there's still a lot of hardening that needs to happen on this platform. Like, it's not done by any means. There's a journey we've started on publishing packages that needs to get continue to be pushed forward.
Mhm.
Um, I've really enjoyed being in the role of like helping with like our developers experience, right? Like making sure that when you're working on our projects, you're having a good time. Like there's not huge problems with like local development or setting things up or uh, you know checking things in like PR builds or anything like that. Um,
Sounds like a good developer advocate.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's all that dissimilar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's fun. That's also some of the hard part. And a lot of the times that's the stuff that no one wants to work on. Like getting CI/CD affects so many people, but it's such a thankless job because
You know who makes that really easy? Netlify, who's not sponsoring this podcast.
not yet. Yeah, I mean, for static, I think for the right project, definitely.
Right, right. Yeah, they have a very like specific market, and they also have a very specific stack, which I know we've talked about this before. They call it the Jam Stack. Um, that is not a stack, but it is a way to describe what they do that is accurate. Um, so it is what it is. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's interesting. Like your perception is that this is stuff people don't want to do. I think this like leans
Oh
up
man,
a little bit
writing type.
against like
I mean, that's
tooling.
like TypeScripty stuff.
Oh, I
It
love
takes a
it.
certain. I know it takes a certain person to want to do that, but
I
it's
told you
like
about I told you about like one of the most exciting things I've worked on at DocuSign was the type validation wrappers that we made for Apollo hooks. Like I
yeah,
still
no,
talk
thank
about
you.
that and it brings me so much joy. Cuz like think about this, like before you use that, like if you have a fetch request in
Mhm,
TypeScript, whatever
mhm.
comes, it's an any. It's an any. Now what if you have a regular interaction with a regular API and you know what's coming back? You just type it as whatever? No, man. No. Do some validation and then use the tools inherent in TypeScript to assert what the type is when you know that it is this type, right? And that way you can
I think
safely work with remote data. Like those IO boundary, like it just becomes
exactly,
an any. I'm so not okay with that world. Because it isn't.
but it
We know
is.
what it
It
is.
is. It is.
No.
No, you don't know what it is.
In GraphQL, you
Any.
absolutely know what it is.
I don't know. When
If
once you introduce that network, then yeah, I mean, it could come. Whatever could come back, right? Like,
Well, that's why you need the validation layer, right? That's why you need it at runtime, and that's why you need the validation layer so that you can check that it has what like the shape that you expect it to have. You're not just checking a key and then making some TypeScript assertion. You are checking at depth that this object is what you expect it to look like. It contains the type you expect it to be. Like it's super sick. Oh, it's so powerful because you're not printing undefined or zero onto your UI ever.
yeah. At what cost to the user, though?
I absolutely no, like you're so dead on with that. Like this is not something that I have included. Like all of our stuff is statically built, and the JavaScript that runs on our client is mostly like tracking trash. Like it's not stuff that I think is super important. I
Okay,
would
that's
never
not
put
client
this.
side then. That's
Uh,
not client side.
well, no, but I would never put that on our marketing website. It is active in our checkout flow, which is what I was working on prior to this, right?
Mm.
Like our checkout flow in its contract with our GraphQL API that handles all of this, handles payments, handles like really specific structures. And it's kind of an important interaction. If the penalty is 350 milliseconds, right? I'm comfortable with that over the course of a whole checkout flow. I'm totally comfortable with that, where we've got absolute like validated data structures that when they hit our Redux store, we know that they fit, we know what we can access, and it happens on the client.
You know, what would be an interesting use case for that is because like you're saying the 350 milliseconds is the cost to the user, right? It's a delay, a network delay, or
little bit of extra package down the wire, maybe a little bit of like processing on those IO operations, but not super heavy.
It'd be an interesting use case is doing that sort of type checking at an edge on edge compute, so that you have something like you're not building that into the client side type checking, right? But you're doing some IO that gets or some fetch request that brings back the data that you're expecting, let's say on your checkout, and then you're saying, hey,
what are the timeouts? What are the timeouts on edge compute?
I mean, it's going to be different across platform. 1 second might be.
Oh, it's plenty of time. Okay.
Yeah. So then you say,
I am in love with that idea. That is a brilliant use for that, where the response comes back validated at a layer that doesn't penalize the client. The client doesn't need to know about those types, but we can make some assumptions because we know that layer is there. Ooh, this is brilliant.
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is, but then it's also like, why don't you just expect that back from the original request, right? Right, like the original request should, in theory, come back with what, like if I'm using some edge function to say, hey, when I get this request back, I'm going to give this to you, and I'm going to give you what type I expect it to be, and you have some dictionary that matches type to like actual validator, right? So then it takes the data I give it, it validates it, and it might even just return like true or false, like yep, it's good, or no, it's not good, right?
Right.
What is the difference there than just saying, when I get this data back, it should be as whatever data. Well, I guess, yeah, you don't have the validation.
Right. And so like if there is a change or if there's some sort of error or there has maybe been an update to that API that was versioned incorrectly, like ideally we should be able to trust our data sources, but we treat them as though we don't trust them, the same way that nothing on the client is secure, right?
It's weird, but that would save you on. I mean, that would cost the user about 10 milliseconds,
right,
for the second request, right? If we're talking about like an edge node.
Okay. But if they're repeated requests, right? If it's repeated requests isn't really a great use case for this. This is typically going to be user specific data in an application that needs this sort of validation. I would assume it's like an authenticated application. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Just
I'm in love with that idea. I want it in my life.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. How are we looking at time? We are getting close to the end of the show. I'm just going to give you a little update on what's going on with me. If that's
what is going on with you, sir?
With my work stuff. Well, so Akamai, did you see Akamai acquired Linode?
Yeah.
So I'm so excited about this because I joined Akamai because excellent company, really excited to work on particularly like the edge compute stuff was fascinating. I think that's the new frontier of compute, right? And it's so cool to see frameworks beginning to adopt it and what's possible. And anyway, but there are a lot of scenarios where the projects that I'm working on aren't suited for edge compute or whatever. And when they acquired Linode, it also opened up an opportunity that projects I can work on the live stream or whatever can now be a little bit more generic purpose because Linode can do anything. I mean, you have a virtual machine or a cloud server, you can put whatever you want on there. And Linode recently started offering managed databases, and it's just cool. So I'm excited. We're like in the normal stream that we're doing right now. We're doing like a neighborhood dog manager app that's just like running through.
I've seen some of your tweets about
CRUD operations. It's great.
Over engineering software for your dog.
Yeah, it's great. It's actually software for me to keep track of neighborhood dogs. But
are you hooking this up to like any sort of NFT tracking stuff?
No freaking thanks. NFT.
Oh no! Like near field. NFC.
NFC
communications tracking, not NFC.
Okay, so
sorry.
Yeah. No.
Whoa.
Woof. So someone came on the stream the other day and was asking about computer vision to be able to identify dogs. So dogs that I've seen before. And it's funny because some of this like over engineering stuff is going to be outside of the realm of what I can do. Like I've never done NFC near field communication work. I've never done AI stuff. And, but we'll see. Right now, I need to put together content for a managed database course. So we're going to do create, read, update, delete in the context of dogs management. I think we're also going to we're also going to look into like object storage. So I want to be able to like snap a photo of Griffin down the street or of Lila, or if I happen to see Charlie at the park. Charlie's really cute pit bull. I can take a picture of her. Yeah. We have a lot of cute dogs. So maybe we'll like look into making it a PWA so I can have it on my phone and just like snap a photo or something. But part of me is like, let's keep it somewhat generic. Like the story around what it is has to do with dogs, but in reality, it's CRUD. It's like add data to a database, read data from a database, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the other part of me is like, no, some of these ideas are super cool. Like, what if you could, I don't know, the AI thing was like just snap a photo of the dog and it tells you the breed, right?
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, aren't there services that you can tap into that would more or less do that? Or are you thinking?
That is a good point.
Like
we could look into that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely that for plants. I don't know about dogs.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm excited.
That's really cool, man. That seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's cool. And, we have some fun folks on the chat that make it interesting, and we're having a fun time. You know what I need to do, though, is I really need to get my Twitch set up better because there's so many people out there with really cool, like, the chat screen is going up on their screen, and they
you mean like the overlay?
Yeah, the overlay is when someone follows it, like bloop bloop, and does like a thing.
So Chris Biscardi, I know, did some projects around like building that, and so did Jason Lingsdorf. Like I think they worked on their overlays together. The video's got to be out there, but I'm sure they'd be down to like help you out with that.
Oh yeah, no,
it's also something that you could probably do as part of your stream.
I probably could, and I probably will, but I've been so swamped with like really big, like I've been producing so much content and trying to get stuff out there that after this ViewConf, so like next month, I'm going to have a little bit more time to devote to giving back to my community.
Okay, you can breathe a little bit. That's good.
Exactly.
Nice.
Cool. Well, I think we can wrap up with that. We are about at time. Since we haven't done this in a while, I'll just remind you that at the end of the show, we like to do shout outs to.
Oh, I've got a banger today.
Yeah, we'll save
Oh
that for
yeah.
the end then.
All right.
Oh shoot, I'm in the wrong place. But yeah, shout outs to people, projects, products, places, services, whatever that we really like. So I'm going to pull up my list of things. Oh, I'm going to do one to a show maybe that I've been using called a show that I've been using. No, not a show I've been using. Um, you know what? I'm going to give a shout out to owning your own domain. Having your own domain, especially with things like certain people purchasing
What?
certain platforms, owning your own domain, like grantweidel.com,
Oh,
obstacle.com, having
okay.
that and just having a place where you can throw your stuff and
Yeah, dude, your boys are pretty excited over here.
yeah, I'm getting distracted because people in the chat, we're doing this live and they just keep talking.
It's cool, y'all. We'll wrap
don't
up.
worry. Yeah, we'll finish the recording and then give you all the attention that you need. They're just craving it. But yeah, owning your own domain, having a place to publish your own content. You can do things like, have your own blog. You can do things like create your own short link thing, but just having a URL that is somewhat permanent.
Yeah.
That you can put something online and more or less you like own it. Like, yes, you're renting the server space, or yes, you're renting the domain and whatever, but you can give someone a URL and like you own that and you don't rely on someone else to be the shepherd of your content. You kind of have it.
Yeah, I'll take that even a step further and set up your email proxy.
Oh, okay. Whoa.
No. I agree with everything that you've said. And I started out like, buy a domain. That's your shout out. Like, you jerk. No.
Yeah. Where's my affiliate link on that?
Cheap Domains affiliate.
Yeah.
No, but having an email that is not Gmail or what, like, even if you just proxy, what is it, an MX something or other, like through it, right? Like, that is something that I have found very useful for me, and I think looks more professional. Like having a weird Gmail address on a resume, like as they come through, like as I go through resumes and interview people and all that kind of stuff, these are things that like stick out to me. Is like there's I would say a lot of people that flow through our systems just have like Beyonce fan 95 at gmail.com type of emails.
And when you could have just Beyonce fan 95.com.
Right.
Like, why settle for a weird Gmail email when you can have a weird domain?
Yes. Exactly. All right. Can I do my shout out now? Am I allowed?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Save me for myself.
One word. Picard.
Oh, yeah.
It's
the season, the new show.
Oh, it's so good. So like, yeah, they did the first season last year, and this new season, like, to be honest, it's like hit or miss. It's could be not great, right? But it's Picard, and at its core, that makes it brilliant. So like, yeah, Picard. That's the shout out.
Cool, right on. I always love when I see your retweets of what is it, the Picard management advice or whatever.
Yeah, dude's got great tips. Yeah. The best tips.
And I can tell when it's like super relevant to you.
Yeah,
it's great. All right, well, that is the show. Grant, thanks for hanging out again. I'm glad we got to do this again after such a long time.
It's good to be back.
And I appreciate
not wait that long again.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone on the chat today for showing up, for being live. We are once again we're going to hang out a little bit after the recording to chat with y'all. And until then, anyone listening on the podcast, thanks for hanging out with us too.
Bye.
See ya. Okay, that's the show. We are done. But we have some folks in the chat that wanted to hang out. Sorry, everyone, for keeping y'all waiting. This is a show that Grant and I have been doing for a while, and it'll be produced hopefully in a week or two and public at thefunctioncall.com. We do own that domain. That's right.
Yep. No reply at the effing call.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah, owning your own email is great. Actually, you know what? I would take that even a step further is having your own domain so that you can have emails and just have all, like you can just accept whatever ridiculous email so that then you can give companies specific emails tied to your domain. And then you can tell if they've ever sold your data because you can be like, oh, I'm going to give this to, I don't know, rei.com. And I've only ever used that email with REI. And if I ever see it, I don't know, somewhere else, like some weird recruiter's like, hey, REI at austingill.com. What's up? I'm like, oh, REI, I got a bone to pick. Yeah.
REI,
that's fun.
the universal data bad guy.
Yeah, they're definitely.
They're a co-op. They're probably fine.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. It sounds like
somebody was in the chat like saying TypeScript is pain.
TypeScript is pain. Someone in the chat has some stories to tell.
Maybe.
But yeah, we're definitely going to do. It sounds like a resounding amount of support to actually do the overlays. Yes, we'll do it live. We will do it live. I will let some people decide. Oh, look at that! We got a LinkedIn chatter. That's pretty cool. That's uncommon.
A what?
Someone from LinkedIn, because we're using this Restream thing, so we can cast to
light
years why ahead. Am I doing this on LinkedIn? LinkedIn. What good is LinkedIn for? Sorry, folks on LinkedIn that are watching. I know there's a million of you right now, but honestly, like I only get spam off LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn is really wild. I've been like active on LinkedIn lately, mainly because we've had some people leave and they've made requests to join my network. And so it forced me to like look at it. It's a very weird platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, TypeScript is fantastic. What's going on? Why do people hate TypeScript?
All the downsides of typed and untyped languages, but no runtime checking.
Okay, you're not wrong. I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah. Let's see. There you go. Now we've got people on different platforms, so I got to start showing who's saying what. Man, TypeScript. The amount of time, the amount of my life.
Well, you don't use TypeScript. You just use JS docs.
Yeah, but you use it's both. You know, it's so convenient for you to tell me when I'm using TypeScript when it's not it's not type. What you're doing is not TypeScript when it supports you, and then sometimes when it's convenient, what I am doing is TypeScript. I can't win with this guy.
No.
But yeah, no, JSDoc, that's what it's about.
I don't know. I think it's cool. JSDoc is neat. I think it's like I've come to accept your use of JSDoc as an introduction
to TypeScript
as like this is the sliding into your DMs version of TypeScript. Like this is how people like TS? Ease their way into the TS world. Like what's interesting is like because TypeScript is so configurable, the idea that somebody knows TypeScript in like massive air quotes has such different connotations. Like, do you use it in strict mode? Do you use any's? Like, have you worked in projects that take your static type checking and use it at runtime? Like, have you ever been exposed to that? People who have come from like other languages that have static types, I don't think are that offended by it. Like, none of it's really all that weird. I think it's people who like use JavaScript exclusively, and this is their first exposures to types. And it is a very weird, like, first exposure, I think. Because it's not, because it's like the second party superset around something that works without it, versus you have to do it this way every time. I don't know. That's my useless
I'm still
thought
trying
of the moment.
I'm still trying to understand. I'm seeing a therapist for my TypeScript issues. We're working through a lot of stuff. I'm still trying to understand how I feel about it, but ultimately, yes, I love when code someone else wrote was written in TypeScript. I love getting all the benefit of it. Writing it myself, though, especially once things get a little funky and you have like, this could be many different types of things, and like the unions and the generics, like writing generics is tough sometimes. And the biggest issue I have with it, the biggest thing is I have spent like 2 hours coming up with a type definition for a function for something that the product is not going to use. You know, so like it's functionality. It's like, it's functionality that disappears. It just like gone.
But it's safety, right? It's tests.
It is.
Right?
It is.
It's TDD, but at like an acceptable level for somebody like me. TypeScript is TDD for sure.
Yeah. Same.
The thing about you, Austin, the thing about you in the way that I've seen you like write code and like want to write code, like you never want to do a normal thing. You want to do some like wacky ass absurd shit. You're like, okay, how can I do this?
I need to cut your mic right now because Stony Eagle in the chat is about to jump on your support bandwagon. Yeah, y'all would get along because
don't mute me, bro.
No, he thinks I'm a mad scientist too. With so we're currently building this like CRUD application, right? And we're using Remix, which is fun, and
that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I get to do a little bit more React, which is cool. That's not what attracted me to it. What attracted me to it is their approach. Their approach of being like kind of in the middle between front end and back end, right? They're blurring the lines. They really are. But right, like so far, I'm doing everything HTML first. Everything has to work, and it's pretty straightforward to begin with, until you get into managing relationships at the managing relationships at the database level, but representing them and updating them through HTML. because it's like with JSON, that's like beautifully simple, right? We have pets and we have owners, and there's like a many-to-many relationship. So you can say, I have this pet object, and one of the properties is the owners, which is a nested array, right? Which itself is owner objects. JSON, cool, freaking easy. You got some JavaScript, throw it into an object, throw it into that nested object, squish it into a string, and send it over the wire. Bam, bam, thank you, man. I should not be saying that anymore.
Bam, bam, what?
Nothing. Don't worry about it. That's embarrassing.
You're embarrassing.
I am embarrassed. But with HTML, all right, we got Brent in the chat too, showing up just for the lulz. So with HTML, that's a lot more difficult because to send data with HTML, you don't have access to nesting, essentially. I mean, we kind of figured out a weird way. Stony was there, helped me through it, and we kind of figured out this weird way to build a query of essentially nesting. Like if I want to do sorting, complex sorting with SQL, right? I can say, you might add in the query, cool, you just say sort by this column, and then sort direction is ascending or descending, right? All done. But what happens when you say, well, I want multi-dimensional sorting. So I want to sort by, let's say, by name. But then if you have two entries with the same name, which one should be on top? And then maybe you sort by like the date or the ID or something like that, right? So now that's easy to do with SQL. You say sort by name ascending and then date descending or something like that, right? How do you represent that in a query? Or, well, then you say sort by 1 equals name and sort direction 1 equals ascending, and then sort by 2 equals date and sort direction.
What's the solution
2?
you landed on?
Stop looking at the weeds.
I understand the problem.
It's going to be too much. It's going to be too much mouth coding to explain.
Okay.
But you basically have to create
I mean, are you mapping sorts?
Short version is we're doing it the Laravel way, where you say in the query string, right? Because you just have a string object. The beautiful thing about query strings is you can have multiple values for the same key. One key can have multiple values. So we said that you can have a sort or a query string key that looks like sort, square bracket, index, or priority, close square bracket, and then the column name or the column, and then you can assign that to name. This is look at the chat. The chat's got Stony's got it.
I built something similar to that. So it wasn't like raw JSON. This was like an access pattern for a Redux store that I built that did very similar things. It was wild.
You got distracted?
No, I was done with my thought. I just said I built something similar to the same problem, and I remembered it was really wild.
Yeah,
that's all.
Actually, I can throw in the chat here. I'll throw in the chat what it looks like. So you basically have two query string parameters, and you can say now, because you have access to indexes,
right?
You can say which one has priority, right? Because just passing name or created as the sort by columns isn't enough, because you have to make sure that they're parsed in the correct order. Sorting by name first and then created by is different than sorting by created by and then name. Anyway,
how many different sort parameters can be fed in? Is it like n number of sort parameters, or is it only
n number?
Okay. Yeah. That gets wild.
It is a lot, and it was a lot of work for something that I'm not going to end up using in the project. But it'll be good, because it's sort of, you write once and then you never have to really deal with it again.
Yeah. I'm actually looking through Zesty's public code to see if what I wrote is still in here. Is it a utility?
Yeah, but the cool thing about, or like the challenging thing about it, going back to the creating stuff, is with HTML, you only have access to that the query string, or you can't have nesting with just HTML. So building this relationship of pets to pet owners actually requires multiple forms. But from a UI perspective, you kind of want to nest one form inside of another form, which I think is valid HTML. Don't remember off the top of my head, but it's hard to explain. You'll see by the time we're done.
Sorry, I'm digging through source code
You're
over
paying
here
attention to something
literally.
else anyway.
I'm trying to find, but I see that I'm like still listed as a contributor on this code, and it's like,
Oh, that's great.
It's very sweet because I know they've run like several migrations, and almost none of my code still exists in here. I'm trying to find this. I'm sorry, I'm a bad person right now, and you're just like throwing up JavaScript with JavaScript. There's too much JavaScript in my JavaScript.
It's what I've been doing on the live streams.
Well, you want to build on the platform, which like I'm gonna make a prediction here, right? Here's my hot take.
Let's hear it.
That's also gonna go too far, right? So you know how like we went too far with like bundle bloat and everything's JavaScript and like yeah. We went too far. Adios Monty, he's not wrong. He's absolutely right. This sane person, smart person. But yeah, this like whole just use the platform thing is gonna go just as too far, where like we're gonna be spending a lot of time building things that are simpler to build and more replicable, like cross browser, than building everything with every blade of grass in its right place. Like it terrifies me. Like I think progressive enhancement is a really good thing. I think it needs to be in its right place, though. That's not for every application.
It's not for every application. I agree.
Yeah,
and I think
I know you agree. I read your work on it, and he's gone. Oh. Austin. Whether Austin disappeared or I disappeared. Did your camera die? Did it overheat? Do you have a Sony? Oh no, I can't hear you either.
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Hello.
I don't know. I do have Sony. I wonder if it is overheating. I always assumed it was a battery.
No. So Sony's will overheat and then they shut down like that.
Yeah. That's what it is.
I mean, like all the cameras will do that, but like it's a little Sony, yeah.
It is, yes. Yeah.
Pew.
Anyway, but that's a good sign. That we should probably end the show anyway.
Yeah.
I have some other things I have to get to.
Cool.
But Grant, thanks. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Everyone in the chat, I'm glad that we had a chance to actually chat with y'all after the show and have some fun. So yeah, Stoney's giving me crap because I use React behind the scene to actually build up just HTML and then don't use it on the client, which is fine. I mean, it like at that point, it's the same as PHP, baby, right?
That's the whole fundamental idea behind Remix, right?
Yes, although the cool thing about Remix that I haven't done that Stoney's going to get to see, he's going to be eating his own words, is
eat your words.
Is
so
that
rude?
Is that they do ship with client side components as well that you can use. So particularly around the form. Well, we are using some of them like route navigation and form submissions. Because instead of having to wait for the browser to do like a hard page transition or a refresh when you submit a form, they have built-in components that will like intercept those and handle it for you and communicate to the server and then return the data. So, and then the form seems nice. I haven't used it yet, but the form seems nice because you can do what is it? Optimistic UI. You can do loading states, this and that. We'll see. Right now, building everything just for HTML, and then we'll enhance on top of that.
Okay. Interesting. So you're writing JSX.
I'm writing JSX, which is such a pain.
Why? What?
I get so many errors from writing class instead of class name. It's
absurd. Yeah, that's okay. That's understandable, right?
Yeah, but it is kind of nice. There are some things in JSX that are like, oh, that's actually okay. That's all right.
Like everything else about it. Yeah, I agree. It's
I
brilliant.
Loops and conditionals are not great.
I mean, that's what
also-
abstractions are for.
Also, dynamic class binding or dynamic style binding. You're only allowed to use objects. You can't do like a string.
What do you mean? For styles? What are you
That's
using? What are you using to style things?
CSS.
Okay. Well, there's your problem, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, come
we'll
on.
See. I haven't solved that problem yet, but we'll see.
Yarn add what is it? Emotion React. Yeah.
No way.
I've solved it for you.
I don't want runtime CSS. I don't want CSS and JS. Unless it can compile away to static.
What you think it do?
Emotion doesn't have a runtime.
Turn JavaScript off and go to DocuSign.com. Is it unstyled? Everything on that page is emotion.
All right. Well, you need to calm down. You're getting a little bit emotional, so.
Ooh.
We'll end on that.
Yeah, we'll end on another pun. Shocker.
Yeah. On brand. So on brand. Can't wait for this ViewConf talk.
Yeah, y'all are in for a delightful treat.
Probably some of my best work, at least from a punny perspective.
Dude, you could do some serious heretic shit and find a way to do JSX in the template layer of Vue.
Oh, Vue supports JSX.
Heresy.
No, it's very
absolute witchcraft.
It's very, very well supported. It's just no one uses it because it's not as good as HTML.
I think Vue people are just React people that are a little oppositional defiant.
All right, you're entitled to your own opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, and Stony, when I have my talk done, it will be recorded, so I'll be sure to update y'all when it's available. Cool. I'm getting out of here. Grant, catch you next time. Hopefully not too long. And chat, love y'all. See ya.
Bye.